Oh, here I am. We see you.
She is.
Everybody. Thank you for joining us on this fine Monday evening. So, I'm going to open the chat so that I see it. Raise or share of hands. I want to know who researched this movie going into watching it.
Way to put us on the spot, Sonny.
I know, maybe and Michelle, the overachievers. Well, I'll be obvious or honest. I absolutely didn't do any research. I was like, I'm gonna watch this. I'm gonna go in blind. I'm gonna just see what happens. And the jump scene got me. I knew I was gonna watch it during the day because I can scare myself very easily. But that jump scene with the bartender in the room, I mean, I'm talking through my phone, had to pause the movie, get up, figure out how to pick the damn thing back up. Yeah, so got me. And Lisa, you were just phenomenal. All of your words were so poignant, and your delivery was just amazing. It was perfect. I felt like you were talking to me. No, listen here, Sonny.
Oh, I think she froze. All right. Who's first? Emily.
Well, for those who are new to the film fest or maybe weren't super familiar with the film, we have two amazing superstars with us here tonight. So we have the incredible director, John Rossman, has joined us tonight. So we're gonna ask him a ton of questions. I have like 16 questions I wrote down that I sent to Glennis, and I was like, I don't think we can ask all these questions, but here we go. And then we also have our movie star, Lisa Cross, who was in movie scenes ever. So Sunny, do you want to kick it off with questions, or do we want to have people want to do some introductions?
Let's do some introductions.
Awesome. John, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is John Rossman. I'm the writer and director of New Life. And when I kind of figured out in the story that the main character was going to have ALS, it was really important for me to try and get it right and really do work to make it feel authentic and believable, not for the story, but also just because, as I've heard time and time again through research, that it isn't portrayed on screen that much. And so I tried really hard to get it right. And obviously, that's a really hard task. So it means the world to me that, I'm engaging with the community in this way. I'm so excited to just be here and talk about the film, talk about Lisa's incredible performance. So thankful I came across Lisa, who's not only an inspiration to anyone who knows her. I'm sure many people in the chat is inspired by her, but she's also just an incredible actor. And so just having her in the film as an actor really made our project so much stronger, but also having her behind the scenes help, made it more real and something honest. And I've showed this film around the world, and you guys know as well as I do, ALS affects so many people, and I've heard so many wonderful stories, and I've met so many people, and I really attribute a lot of that to Lisa. So I'm just happy to be here and excited to contribute in any way.
We're glad you're here.
Awesome. Lisa, do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm Lisa Cross, and I'm again, I was an athlete before, but I left it again. Which now let me do again. I hope you can understand me. It's hard to speak in the evening, but I will do my best.
John, I don't know if you know too, but let's see, I'm trying to count. There are at least 5 people here who are living with ALS right now who are on the Zoom. So just thought we'd share that.
Incredible. It's amazing.
Yeah, they're all right. Some of them.
Awesome. It looks like Sunny froze, so I'm gonna go ahead and ask the first question. So, oh, let me pull up my list of my 16 questions for John. John, what, like, when you started thinking through the horror to sci-fi to genre world, like what started connecting you with ALS world? Like, did you have connections before? Did you like, what pulled you into this world that made you want to find this subject? And then from there, like, how did you meet Lisa? Like, can we talk about a little bit of how all that happened?
Yeah, absolutely. I think from the start, I wanted to do kind of a thriller where someone's on the run and you don't know why they're running. And I think it was fun to play with narratively where it's like you kind of quickly forget that they're running in a way. And then in the middle of the film, you're like, oh, wait, this person running should be caught no matter how you feel about them. And so the newer part of the idea came in with like, well, who's the person trying to bring her in? And I wanted their stories to parallel, and I knew that I wanted it to be kind of like a healthy carrier of an infectious disease. And so I started thinking about, well, what if someone was facing a similar health challenge where, maybe they weren't, it was kind of like the opposite. They weren't affecting everyone, but they were kind of breaking down. And you could kind of think about the grief cycle in different ways. And I thought about ALS. I do have it in like on the cousin side of the family. But I really thought about it with a young woman I met when I used to be a journalist. And I went with a group and we went to interview her, and she wrote a memoir called Pillow Flipping with ALS. And it was so important for her to write this memoir that as she was continuing on with the disease, she wrote parts of it, with a pen in her teeth and then, by sight, just because she was such a storyteller and wanted to share her story with the world. And just knowing that and kind of going into the room at that time, I kind of had a lot of preconceived ideas of how I might feel about this, that I might be really sad or this might be like depressing. But I just remember being like the biggest takeaway being so moved by how optimistic she was. And then I read her memoir and how much optimism was in her memoir. And that really deeply surprised me. So when I was thinking about that character, that was the thing that I thought about. And so then I started doing research, right? Because then I was up at night. I'm like, okay, well, if I'm doing ALS, I don't want to be a jerk and get it completely wrong. And I felt a lot of responsibility to do it right. And so I started researching, and the first person I really came across was a columnist named Dagmar Munn. I don't know if anyone in this group is familiar with her writing, Living Well with ALS. And it's incredible. But she had that through line that I'd seen in Summer's writing. The woman who wrote that memoir is Summer Winston. And I was blown away, and I just started seeing that over and over again. And once it came time to cast, I obviously wanted to cast someone with ALS, and Dagmar helped me by posting on a Facebook group, and that's how I found a couple people, and we auditioned Lisa, and Lisa won the part. She's an amazing actor, and everyone we auditioned was really great. But Lisa really is just phenomenal. So that's how I came across Lisa, and that's kind of how I started thinking about ALS and Elsa's character.
Thank you for finding me. I I actually got out of a pool in Palm Springs to audition for John. And it was nothing but fun working with you. And of course, I had no idea if it would go anywhere, but I really enjoyed the audition and was thrilled when I got the call.
I believe you celebrated with the margarita when you got the comment.
Yes, I did.
So Lisa, did you see the post on the Facebook event or the Facebook group, or did somebody send it to you and say, well, Lisa Cross is an actress, or like, how did that happen?
I saw the post from Jaguar, and the contacted John's casting director. I have not been on Facebook since I lost my hands, which is so sad because I love it.
Can you
Sean,
hear
were
her?
there, oh, sorry, Emily. I'm like, I know you have a bunch. I was just gonna jump in and let you take a sip of water or something if you wanted. John, were there accommodations that you had to make for Lisa that you didn't anticipate? Were there aspects of ALS that surprised you as you were doing this? What did you learn from Lisa?
Well, I mean, I think again, Lisa is a very special human being, and I was blown away by the strength, the optimism, the living well with ALS. And then I think what I was the reality of the disease, right? It's we did a pickup day in San Francisco, and it's that shot, right, where it's like this call, but then we're on the other side of the screen, and we filmed at Lisa's daughter's house. And
My sister's house.
sorry, oh yeah, sorry, your sister's house. And I think I think something really difficult and frustrating with the disease is your brain is still moving at the exact same length, right? But like your body just takes more time to process. And so, the day we had to take our time to get it right and make sure we were getting a great performance that represented Lisa well. I'm still working and she's still an actor, and it's my responsibility to make sure that Lisa is giving her best performance on screen. So I think she nailed probably the first take, but I still wanted to do multiple takes. And it just took a little bit of while and we had to be patient. But I mean, I think that was like it wasn't too surprising. That's just kind of the process. But I think it was informative about the realities of the disease in a way.
Yes. It was a long day, made longer by the traffic outside.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So we're filming and we're inside of Lisa's sister's house, and since it's a skeleton crew and I don't have all the fancy stuff, I think I was probably recording with the pickup mic. And since it's like a shotgun mic, which means it's directional, I'm like pointing it at Lisa while we're filming it and whatever. But she lives across the street, so that my microphone would pick up, a car going by or the garbage truck or an airplane above. And so Lisa would just be giving this emotional performance that like is really speaking to the soul of the film. And it's like pause for plane, and then you got to pause for 45 seconds or something. It's like, okay, well, let's just take it from the top again. And
Lisa, how did your voice last take after take? Did you notice it getting harder for you to speak?
No, not really. It would now. Now my voice is much more transitory. I will do my best to last tonight.
And I
Okay.
think Lisa had told me the story that when they shot it, they had asked her, because she did have such a strong voice at that time, and they wanted to show a little bit more of a progression. Her acting skills came about because she had to actually act a little bit more progressed at that point. So at the time that you see her in the film, she was pretty close to speaking pretty clearly at that point.
I modeled my voice in the film after my sister Carol, who died of ALS. I was also sitting in her chair, which really felt like a connection.
Wow.
Yeah, it was beautiful. Yeah, and Glenna, thank you for that. I mean, yeah, because Lisa, you know, really was acting there. But I did remember you sitting in your sister's chair, and that is emotionally great.
So Lisa, in the movie, you took on the mentor role. And I guess for you, it might be a little bit different than like the average ALS case since you have experienced it in your family. But could you talk to us a little bit about like some of your ALS mentors and people that you've been mentoring and like sort of how that process works and how people like get connected like that?
I have. My Dagmar is one of the people I admire most. I don't know too many people with this disease except for the ones I'm related to. Although I have mentored several people, both in person and online. I won't give their names, but those relationships are the most wonderful. Because one thing I can share with them is positivity about living with ALS. Like I always say, I may have ALS, but it does not have me.
I usually get to turn around and like blot my eyes, but there's no doing that on this Zoom.
She did, you know, this does relate. Andrea asked a question, did Lisa consult on the film as well as act? And she did. She worked with our lead actress, Sonia. And Sonia and her talked. I mean, Lisa, do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Oh, Sonia was the most wonderful student. We, I, I mentored her by Zoom, and she was so eager to portray this disease realistically. And she was more than willing to practice with me, even down to how a hand would cramp in early ALS. I could not have asked more from her as a student or an actress. And I hope she feels the same way. I think she does.
She told me, so background on Sonia Walger, she's an incredible actor. She's a working actor, works a lot. She's probably best known for a character she played in the show Lost. She kind of had a main character in that, and then she was recently in the show For All Mankind on Apple Plus. Very tough, very hard on herself, very British, and you know, pretty. I learned so much working with her. She's incredible and incredibly generous, but very professional. And we're working pretty closely on this because she also feels responsible to get it right. And she's holding me accountable, I'm holding her accountable. And you know, it's serious, but you know, we have a good relationship. She gets off one phone call with Lisa and she tells me, I don't care where this film goes, how well it does, just having a relationship with Lisa and meeting that woman made it worth it to me.
Oh, wow.
And she does not just say stuff like that. It really deeply, profoundly moved her working with Lisa and taking on this role. And I think that amount of care she put into the character was really inspired working with Lisa.
Wow.
I'll tell you, when I watched this movie in the movie theater with you, John, we had a really cool sneak peek preview for all of Lisa's friends and network in San Francisco. So it was pretty special. And I remember watching it, and I saw Sonia, the actress, curl her hand, and I knew, and I'm not kidding you, because I went directly to you as soon as it was over. I said, you taught her how to do that, didn't you? Because it was exactly Lisa's hand curl. And I just, that to me was one of the more powerful, besides your, amazing performance. Okay, whatever. Sonia's amazing performance was that hand curl, because it was Lisa, and it was just beautiful. And I knew you had taught her how to do that.
I did.
And she was an incredible student, because I knew it was you. Yeah. Oh my God, we're both going to be crying. It was beautiful.
John, I don't know if you know that, sorry, Andrea, that I'm about to do this, that Andrea, who just asked that question, is living with ALS, and a documentary on her is part of our series. The film is called Go On, Be Brave, about Andrea participating in 50 marathons in 50 states while living with ALS.
That's awesome. That's incredible. I really, maybe Emily or someone will send me a link to the documentary.
You just put it in the chat.
Hey, here we go.
Sorry, Andrea. Sorry.
Perfect.
Let's see. It looks like Lauren might have a question.
Hey, sorry, I'm just clapping because I know that film and Andrea, and I just kudos for that recommendation.
I'm excited to watch it.
It's actually our film next week. So if you want to come back, same time,
Oh, cool.
we'll put the spotlight on Andrea.
That is perfect. This is my least favorite place to be. So I'd much rather be part of a discussion.
I just, before we get into Lisa's questions, I wanted to ask, how long ago was that Lisa's part filmed for the movie? How do you say that?
That would have been, I believe, May 2022, I believe. We wrapped April, so it's either May or June 2022. Yeah, I think May though, right? Does that sound right, Lisa? May 2022? Great.
Clintus, do you want me to ask questions, or do you just want to?
Sure, whichever one you want.
I wasn't sure if you had a natural flow, or if you
No.
wanted it to be a Q&A.
Yeah. So we did have a couple questions come up, and we answered several of them. Sorry, I don't have my old piece of paper. I have the laptop. So, what was it like to see yourself on the big screen? Lisa says, honestly, I'm always very self-critical about myself. Sorry, hold on. I gotta make this bigger because my old eyes can't see. I tried not to be, but I couldn't help myself. It was emotional to see me sitting in my sister's chair. I lost my sister to ALS, and I felt that connection when I saw the scene. At the time of filming, I was not as far along as my character. So as an acting choice, I added elements to my performance to show the progression of the disease and what it can do to your body. Now that time has passed and my ALS has progressed. Seeing myself in this role has had an extremely impact on my life. My character, Laura, advised Elsa to accept her disease, but I've chosen to fight with every inch of my being. There's a peace in acceptance, but I'm not ready to give in. Even though those words were not spoken, I do believe it's the message that was delivered.
Yeah.
Boy, I can't see to start with, and now I'm like, oh, these are emotional.
Oh, thank you for reading for me.
Sure.
And then
In the buttons scene, we see that Elsa is getting frustrated What was some of the things you remember getting frustrated with and with when your symptoms showed up? And Lisa says, before I knew I had ALS, I was in a church choir with my daughter. We were in rehearsal for Christmas Eve Mass. I have classically trained my entire life to develop my singing voice. The first thing ALS started to take was just that. The ease that I had before started to diminish. I could not support the high notes or hold any of my notes. At the time, I chalked it up to just not being in shape, so I worked harder. With that work, I did not see improvement, and then I started to lose clarity in my speaking voice. That was in 2016. Since then, I have had many frustrations with ALS, but one thing has stayed was fighting force in my journey. I have ALS, but ALS does not have me. Let's see, what else?
About my challenges with speaking clearly. I said, talking drunk while sober.
I think Kate has the perfect shirt for that one, don't you, Kate?
Oh,
Yes, but today I'm only wearing badassery. It felt right. But our shirt says, am I drunk? Yes, checkbox. No checkbox. I have ALS. Big check.
I want that shirt.
Available on heralsstory.org.
Thank you.
I'd have to check I'm drunk.
Depending on at what point you see me, Carol, I get more
You
than
double
one
check
check.
it? Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
nice
Emily.
work, Emily. Thank you.
Should put the link up for the t-shirt. I'll
Oh,
make sure we'll get
God.
one. Yeah. Should I read one more?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
So this is a quote from the movie. I have a disease, not a death wish. This felt like a huge arc in the movie, realizing she wanted to live her life instead of ending it. Do you agree?
Oh, yeah.
Lisa's answer was, I agree with this wholeheartedly. It was a choice in the movie that had my full support. Life is a wonderful thing, and I want to keep living. Friends and family are everything to me, and ALS cannot take my mind or my spirit.
John, can you talk about that line too? Writing that line?
Yeah, man, this is so awesome. This is the best Q&A I've done. Um, yeah, I mean, I agree. What I wanted to kind of think about when I was writing that Elsa character was, that trope of the professional who's like the monk and dedicates their lives to being perfect. And, it's like a whole subgenre in film, like a professional or Heat or the Samurai or something. But what happens when they can't do that anymore? And they're still trying as hard as they can, and they've dedicated their life to this thing. And I feel like someone myself who's really ambitious, just kind of channeling that idea of what happens to all of us eventually, right? Where it's, your body is reacting in a different way, but it's exponentially changing for Elsa with ALS. I thought that, she was trying to fight it. She was trying to fight it. And in this conversation, she's given really an unsaid choice. She can try to change the world and accept kind of what she has, or not, and let it go. But within that is kind of this personal choice, right? Where the person who's sending her away is doing it because he thinks she's expendable. And but in that moment, what she's thinking about is that she isn't expendable. In fact, she's the only person who can do this. And she could just walk away, and she could just sit and wallow and accept this and be sad. But that is where she kind of chooses to fight. And I agree with Lisa. Acceptance is a tricky word there, but I also agree with Lisa's take that she is fighting in her own way, and that's her version of accepting it as well.
Absolutely. I struggle with acceptance every day.
Mm.
And there is peace in acceptance. As you wrote, John, truly there is.
But Lisa, you're accepting the disease, but you're not accepting the death sentence.
Oh, correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will fight to stay alive.
And a lot of that was, I was really inspired by Summer's memoir that I read around this character. And I dedicate the film to Summer. But she definitely had a lot of those, insights in her writing.
I found one of the touching moments towards the very end where she takes off all of her garb and is chasing what's the young girl's character's name?
Oh, Jess. She's chasing Jess.
Um, when she takes everything off and then holds her hand, I was like, oh, I can't anymore. This is just, I suddenly just realized that I had stopped watching a horror film and started watching, a relationship film because it was just beautiful, just stunning. Yeah.
I think what I wanted to think about, and ALS is again a microcosm of this, where it's like when you're writing something, someone said that I really agree with, is like, what is the theme, right? You hear that a lot. And this one person defined it as a question that doesn't really have an answer. And, the theme I kept on going back to is like, what is your responsibility like in an unpredictable time? And, think about climate collapse or anything, like what does it mean to be like a human being? And if you like trace this disease in the film, it's someone helping a stray dog, it's someone sharing a meal, it's someone sharing a drink, maybe it's like human touch. And I think for me it's still important when, even if these things are weaponized, even if these things are dangerous, still that humanity, and keeping that and protecting that and fighting for that, even in the face of everything saying you shouldn't. I think that's to me thematically and probably personally, like that's what it means to kind of be alive and be human. And I see ALS as an extension and acceptance of it as the journey, but part of that larger theme. And so that hand holding, although dangerous, I felt like, that is what is core to the story.
Yeah.
Beautifully told.
One thing we're doing this year, John, is we're pairing the films with books that go along with the film. And honestly, we didn't have one picked out for yours. And then after we watched it, we saw that you had dedicated it to Summer, and so went and found her memoir and have been sharing that along with, and it's linked on our film page.
That's incredible. If I'm being honest, I was so incredibly moved by that experience. And obviously everyone, you can probably tell I've influenced, I put it in my movie, and it was really hard for me to reach out to Summer's family and tell them. And I think, maybe worst case scenario, that would be the personification of the fear that I got this wrong, right? And it's silly, right? It's like dedicating something to someone's daughter. But when I finally did reach out, they were so excited and moved and all that. But I talked, it was really through one of her friends, and what she was most moved about was how hard Summer had fought to make that memoir, how painstakingly she fought to tell her story. And that, as Lisa says, like ALS like didn't have her. Her identity was really a storyteller. And that to have her work like influence in my movie meant a lot to them. But you guys reading it and sharing it and actually sharing her own words and her own book is so much more powerful. And that means so much to me because it is a wonderful memoir and it is awesome. And there's so much to learn from it. And I'm so happy you guys are reading it and engaging with it.
Kate wants to know if we're doing a sequel.
Come on, hear me out.
Yeah.
There's the cough at the end. She could become a supercomputer badass driving the whole mission. I'm in.
I would love it. I was thinking of like if there was a sequel, maybe be like taking place on a parallel timeline type sequel. But I could see it. I mean, Sonia's really great, and maybe we'll chalk it up to maybe, and maybe like having ALS is the cure to having this disease. And, um,
So I have a few more. If we have any others from the audience that we want to go before I just kind of like am flinging questions. Because I feel like we had some notes in the chat as well that we can read. Diane.
Yeah, there's a nice comment from Diane if you want to read it.
Yeah, Diane said, John, you did such a remarkable job of weaving so many dynamics into the story. Elsa's bravery, skill set, and determination to get the job done and being viewed as expendable, sad face. I'm not generally a fan of the horror genre, but this was beautiful.
means a lot. I think yeah, I love horror movies. And I think it was really important for me to do a horror movie. Now, if you were to ask some of the audience people who watch this movie, they will yell at me in the face that this was not a horror movie to their standards. However, I still love them and I love horror movies. But I can't. I think with this story, once I figured out what Elsa's kind of arc was, I couldn't not try to weave it in the most realistic way possible. And this is kind of the Frankenstein story that existed. So um, what is most important to me is once I decided to do this story, you know, doing it in a way that felt honest. And so I can take the hit on the horror stuff, just hearing that, people in the community sees something in the story that's worthwhile and feels good. So awesome.
And another note that we got from Tina a little bit earlier was that's so funny about the hand curl and how authentic it was. I noticed it too and thought of how much it reminded me of my husband's hands. And that was actually a question I had that you sort of addressed a little bit, but the first scenes and the scene in the car holding the pen and just like the first couple scenes were like, if we didn't go into it knowing that ALS was the topic, you don't really notice anything's wrong. You're just like, oh, I've been writing a lot, or oh, I was like walking up the stairs, or oh, I tripped. Like, and that's so many stories that we hear at like I've been at ALSTI now for 7 years, and that's how everybody's story starts. They're like, oh, I thought I pulled a muscle in my back. Oh, I thought this happened. And just the way you capture these teeny tiny details. I think we covered every symptom like on the What is ALS page. But in like the best visual, like we all kind of picked it up, like we've all seen it, right? So I just thought that was really incredible. And I'm sure everybody else here was picking up on those things as well. But if you didn't, until she said it, most of the audience probably didn't know what was going on, right? Like, have you been getting feedback about that?
Yeah, I mean, yes, I think honestly, a lot of feedback. It's like, because Sonia's like the way she's written and the performance is like she's kind of like this wall. And like it is that moment with Lisa where all those things connect. And then like, it's also important, right? Because you're about to hand off where like it kind of becomes Sonia's story and or Elsa's story, and you want to kind of follow her, right? And kind of be rooting for her to bring. So, really is that Lisa moment that makes that turn. But I did want to write it in the same way where it's like, why is Jess running? Why are we focusing on these little details? But like you said, this is also part of her journey where there are these things that are happening, and she's in this position right now where she thinks that like everything in her life she's been able to like will it, get whatever job she wants, climb at top of an academic corporate ladder. And so these things that are happening to her, she feels like she can just like will them away through just like, perseverance, which you can fight and you can be strong, but there's a level of like, adjustment and coming to terms with it. But when we're seeing these things, that character is like not there, and she's trying to stretch and she's trying to work out, she's just trying to fight it. And I think that's really important to her character at that point as well.
Yeah, and then the first scene where it feels like she's accepting it, the tripping scene is like, that's, I feel like a lot of stories we hear as well, where people are like, first fall sucks. And then you have to like be like, okay, let's figure out what to do from here on out. And that's when most people I know are like, great, I'm going to grab a cane, I'm going to grab a walker. Like, this is when you like finally, and I'm getting head nods here. So but it's just one of those things that, like, seeing it on film in real time, like I've heard about people's falls, but like seeing it, you're just like I wanted to pick her up and like reach into the screen and grab her. So I thought she did an amazing job in that scene as well. She's amazing. She's a great actress.
Oh,
Great.
she's the best. She's the best. Yeah.
Mandy put a question in the chat asking what the favorite moment or memory was from filming.
I think, you know, uh, yeah, I think, well, there's a couple. The obvious one is the final cut, and you're just like, oh my God, we pulled this off. And you're like, and he can breathe. I was wearing an N95 mask for 20 days straight because if one day went down, if I got sick, like other people could maybe get, at this point in time, if you got COVID, it would be really bad, but most people were like kind of vaccinated. But like if I got it and I was down for a week or two, you know, I'm belly up financially. It's terrible. So the relief of finishing the film was great. I think maybe a more surprising answer was, Haley, the young woman Jess, who's on the run. I only saw like we auditioned and kind of did a read, and I could tell she was good. But her first day was kind of walking around. There's a lot of shots of her walking around. It was like raining out. It was just really miserable. And in my head, I just had this. I was like, I just started like fixating. I was like, I don't know, like this could completely go wrong. Because the next day, we're going to drive 8 hours to that big epic scene where she's covered in full practical effects makeup, screaming and crying. And I just didn't know because that's the moment. That's like the time, like you need to sell. So seeing her on the first take just pull that off and go so big and so dramatic and be so like raw and vulnerable to the point where I like look around, the whole crew is crying. I was like, oh my God, okay, we have this scene. And from here, if we just start building backwards, people might not like this film, but you can't say it's like a terrible film, right? Because you have like this performance in it. And that was, Jess's first day. Or Haley's first day. So I think that was a really happy moment for me to be like, okay, I have these two leads and they're both going to be phenomenal. And now the work is back on me to make sure I'm, getting the right performances that they want to bring to camera.
Can I just share a reflection? So I work for the ALS Association now, but my first connection with ALS was back in 1993 when my best friend from high school was diagnosed. She lived for 11 very long years because she progressed quickly and had bulbar onset and, really was very disabled through much of those 11 years. But I was just so touched, Lisa, when you said your first symptom was not being able to hit the high notes in your church choir, because that was her first symptom. And in all these years, I've been running a support group for ALS since 2000. I've been working for the ALS Association since 2012, and I've never heard anyone share that as their first symptom. So my heart is just touched and warmed, and I feel my friend Connie's presence just in your sharing that. So thank you.
I find that there's always those type of stories. As somebody starts to tell a story, then another story weaves in, and then somebody weaves in on that story, and it's just amazing. Our community is spectacular in that way. I'm going to add to it that John, I don't know how or why, one of the only what 5 characters that are basically in this movie, one of them's name is Vince. Vince was my husband who had ALS that passed away. So when Sonia says something, or Elsa, I'm sorry, says something to Vince, and I was like, what? Oh my God. So I call her, I'm like, you didn't tell me Vince was in this film. So there's so many different layers that everybody kind of gets from things like that. And I love that story. That's beautiful.
It's incredible.
That's why we do this.
Right?
I love it. I always when I meet people wherever they are on this journey, tell me your story. Tell me your connection to ALS because that person lived and they were important to you. So I know my fate, and if we really want to get technical, I know your fate too. But tell me the story of the people you loved that make this connection. And that's why we do this.
One of my favorite quotes. I took a lot of notes on this movie, if people can't tell, as I was watching it. Because I was like writing direct quotes down the whole time to talk to John about on this. But I think one of my favorite quotes was the scene that Dennis was talking about where she reaches down to grab her hand. And she says, I just want to see the world. Because the whole time, this poor girl, like doesn't know she's sick. She thinks she's like murdered someone, right? Has no idea that this thing is happening to her. And she's just trying to go to Canada and like get out of town so she can go on a trip. And when she says me too, and it like kind of reversed that whole thing from her contemplating suicide to like being like, no, like I'm doing this thing, like that was wild. Like that was a really, really powerful moment. So I don't know, like, I know we're talking about acceptance as the theme, but when you were writing all this, did you like know that were you like, this line's gonna get them? Like this line's the line, or were you like, how did that feel writing this? Like, did you know that we were all gonna be like sobbing at our computer screens or our TVs or whatever? Or were you like, or some lines coming up there like, interesting.
No, writing is an act of self-doubt and self-hatred. So no, I was not like, throwing confetti, but I think a huge weight that was taken off my shoulders, probably when I was writing like this draft, and since I've written other projects, is that the best screenplay is really a blueprint. Like it doesn't need to be the great American novel. It's like this thing that everyone's coming together and building off of. So you should communicate your vision. It should move people. But I fundamentally believe it's a living document. And so Sonia and I, because that we did know that was the big scene, right? And that back and forth, what was the whole client, because that's the one they're like really meeting in the film, and like you want, like, even the way it's shot, they're supposed to like they could be just talking to each other. One could be like an inner monologue, and they need to feel like it's one conversation. So Sonia and I went back and forth on that line for a really long time, and because I was overwriting it, and it was just never right. And I really think we were in production when Sonia was like, "What if we just did like?" It's just like, because we're like reading it back and forth, and she's like, "What if it was just like me too?" Because then I can communicate that, and it just captures everything. And my job is to be like, that is a great idea, and then take all the credit for them, because I'm the brilliant person who's welcome. But yeah, no, that was Sonia, and I think that's a really cool thing about filmmaking, that it is this, like, it's this messy social science, and everyone is contributing, and it is a big team sport. But yeah, that was a Sonia one.
I just want to say, like, I said this earlier, but I saw it a second time, which I think was even more impactful. So I'm really looking forward to seeing it even a third, because we're learning so much through each. Because in the beginning, like I think Emily had said, we don't know what's going on with the character, and we knew she had ALS because we had been prompted for that. But it's it was just a wonderful film. So if you've not seen it twice, see it the second time, and probably a third.
Well, I really do. Well, first of all, thank you, Laura. That is amazing. And I really appreciate it. And I do want to thank our distributor, Brainstorm. I mean, I pushed them, me and my partner, Justin, who's, kind of a producer on this film. Really, we're looking for a partner who would support this angle of it. And the link they gave you guys does go back. Some of the proceeds go back to ALS TDI. And I will tell you, no other distributor we were talking to would remotely taken any of their money out, just because this is, we're usually going to lose money in these things. But they really are a supporter. So if you are sharing it with friends, if you are watching or renting, make sure to use that link that you guys have on the ALS TDI, because every time you rent, proceeds are going back to ALS TDI. And that's brainstorming this week.
Thank you, John. That's so kind of both you and producers. That's just incredible. Thank you.
I was lucky enough to read the script before myself as a man. And having read the script, I came to the theater knowing the story, but I was blown away by the way you wove it on the screen. It was so alive and moving. You did an amazing job. You made it come alive.
Thank you so much, Lisa. That obviously means everything to me.
Do we have any other audience questions? You're free to unmute yourselves if you do, or type them in the chat. We can read them for you.
Or comments.
I have a comment. Just I wanted to thank John for showing up for our in organizing, and Glennis for the premiere in San Francisco. It was super fun. It was amazing to see it on the big screen with Lisa and her friends and family and the community, and very, close to us, Glennis and I and Lisa, and incredible.
And I will tell you that her friends and family showed out in such a strong force that ALS TDI ended up bringing in a little over $10,000 because of it. So, John, thank you so much. You really have made a difference in ALS research. So, thank you.
And I loved meeting your dad. He was so sweet.
Yeah, that was a surprise. Yeah, my dad flew out and surprised me, and I was like, I just I don't even know. We just got back from like London or something, and I was like dead. And then I wasn't sure if I was dreaming or not. But no, that was really important to me. There was a point in the summer where I was like, oh, I should share this with Lisa. And then I was like, okay, I'll send her the link. And then, I was like, well, maybe like she wants to watch with her friends or family. I don't know. And so, and then I was like, well, how cool would it be if we like kind of did a screening in San Francisco? And I asked Lisa if she had any organizations she liked working with, and she said absolutely ALS TDI, and that's where I met Glynis. And for me, it was just like, hey, here's this thing. I want to do something special for Lisa. I want to, if we can raise money for ALS, that'd be awesome. Um, and maybe doing it at a cool theater versus like a Regal theater or something. Um, and then Glynis just took the ball and ran with it. And, I know she worked with, your team and you set it up as like an event. But from my perspective, it was just kind of like, well, maybe it could be like this and that or whatever. And then it turned into like a fundraiser and it was like really organized and we were able to kind of channel for it. And, it also means a lot to me to raise $10,000 based off of, Lisa's contribution to the community. Because of course, it's like my film, people like my film, but it's really Lisa. People love Lisa and they're so excited to see her act and see how great of a job she did and excited to be part of it and be part of her story. And so I think that's really a testament to Lisa and how beloved she is. And I'm really happy to have shared just a little bit of that.
Thank you. I only found out today where it was available. I'm going to share that with all my friends.
Awesome.
Andrea wrote in the chat asking where else the film has been shown.
So we did our world premiere at so it's like a horror movie. So there's kind of like these horror film festivals that are like there's like a little circuit for them that are big within the community, but we premiered at one called Fantasia, which is in Montreal. Then we played at Fright Fest in London, which is the big one in Europe. And they played us Friday night on the largest IMAX in London. That's where they premiered Dune 2. So Lisa's performance is on a football field in front of like 700 people. And that was crazy for me because they put me in like the front corner. And so I'm just like watching the film like through this angle that I obviously had never seen before. So that, but then we've played all over the US, Santa Fe, Florida, Utah, the Heartland Film Festival. We're playing later this summer, the largest genre festival in Asia, BIFAM. We've played Italy, Germany, twice in France. And so I probably 20 festivals all told. We've since sold domestically. So right now we're in North America. And we come out in a couple weeks in London and across the UK. But I saw a poster that they're making for Russia. I think it's like, I don't know what they're calling it, but something Contagion. It's weird. And there's like Cyrillic and I don't know what they did, but it's great. So there'll be a DVD in Russia, but Asia, Italy, they're going to do a theatrical and DVD in Germany, DVD in Australia. So Lisa's going worldwide.
Woohoo! I love it.
And congratulations to you, John. That's got to be so exciting.
Right.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, this was a pretty small film, and I'm happy that it's gotten a great reception. It's been cool. But the funny thing is, it gets a really good reception, and then you focus on the one random person who was kind of mean to you online. So I'm trying to get better about that and focus on the positive. But I'd be lying if I didn't say I'm a work in progress a little bit.
John, I'm just curious, what's your favorite horror movie?
Oh, good question.
I think my all-time favorite horror movie is like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which sounds way more intense than it is, though it is pretty intense. But it's kind of like really it's just this independent film from the 70s, and everything should have blown up, everything should have gone wrong. A bunch of no-name actors, kids with a celluloid, I think it was like not even 35. And it was just like, and everything's heat and like everything was so covered in grime and baked blood that it was like sticking in the morning to each other. But whatever they captured and just like how hot it was and the heat and the actual film print created like a perfect film. And it's and to this day people still think it's this incredible film, and it's really scary and there isn't too much gore or viscera or anything like that. It's a lot of it's suggestive, and it's still terrifying, and I really like it. But I think a surprising one might be this film was really inspired by The Fly. by David Cronenberg. And that movie is probably best remembered for being, Jeff Goldblum kind of gets half naked in it. And also like there's these crazy practical effects. But what I really took away from that film, it's this love story between Jeff Goldblum and Gina Davis. And you, the audience, kind of get enwrapped in it because Goldblum's quirky and Gina Davis is so cool and they like really work together. And then his body really slowly starts to decay as it kind of transforms into a fly. And we, the audience, are kind of watching it through Gina Davis's perspective. And you're watching someone you love change in front of you in a really scary way, and you don't really know how to help. And that's the like actual horror of that film. And I think it was talking about AIDS back in the 80s. But I really love that about The Fly, because on one surface, like the practical effects are incredible and you can see one movie, but on the deeper emotional level, it's talking about something that's real and terrifying. And I think that, is a lot. I took a lot of that in this film.
Now I need to see The Fly again.
Oh, you should. I mean, you might watch it and be like, what the fuck is John talking about? I don't know. But
I mean, conceptually, that makes a lot of sense. That's really
it's deep. It's good. Yeah. And I love Jeff Goldblum. I love that movie, but I'm going to look at it in a very different lens at this point. So thank you.
I was trying to think, is this the first movie we've done that hasn't been like about one person's trivias with ALS?
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool.
We don't have too many movie stars with ALS.
Yeah, thank God.
ALS is more common in film and television programs. You see it much more often. You did not see it here.
Yeah, it's true.
Glynis, can you repeat that?
She said that you see it in television shows more now than you've seen ever in the past. So it's becoming more mainstream, which is
more in England.
And more in England.
Not here.
There's been several of them that have had ALS things, and every time it happens, I'm always like, "What did it just say?"
Yeah, and Andrea asked if it's the first scripted film. I think it is the first one, but we have another one coming up.
Wonderful.
I love this community you guys have. That's kind of like book club, but with film and
all Sunny.
Yeah, love it, Sunny. You did a great job. But you guys have such a powerful network of support for each other. And that's so important. It's awesome.
It's an incredible community, and thank you, Sunny, for doing this. It's very fun.
And there's been like Sunny, would we have thought 3 years ago that we were going to be able to keep doing this? I mean, there's some really great films,
We didn't think in February we could come up with this.
Yeah.
Like in February, we were racking our brains.
Yeah.
Like, we have to market, and then here we are, bigger and better.
So we did watch Theory of Everything. I was trying to rack my brain of what.
We did do Theory of Everything.
So that was one, and I think we have one other one for next year's calendar for scripted. But yeah, I think it's been a lot of documentaries, which has been awesome because it is really great to see everyone's stories. And then we have our first ever short film in the festival, and that's our last film this month.
Was it about that robot? Is it the robot one?
Yeah.
We played with that one at the Florida Film Festival.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
They're great.
John, you should join that one. We're so excited about this Pookie and the Lights.
Yeah.
And we're gonna watch it together and then have a discussion.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it'll be the first time we've ever watched it together because most of the movies sitting for 90 minutes and then talking for an hour might be a little tough for everybody. But doing it it's like 10 or 15 minutes for Lukey, I think. We're very excited.
And Melinda Kavanaugh, who's going to be your guest, is outstanding. I know her, and she's just amazing.
Awesome.
So, John, have you seen Lukey?
No, I didn't. But we were at the same film festival. Everyone's like, you gotta see the short film, and I've been meaning to catch it. So yeah, I love this film festival. I told you this is my favorite Q&A.
Yeah.
I want to check that one out. I also want to see the documentary that I've saved on the tab right now. Go on, be brave. So.
Well, you're going to see a lot of people on that screen that are in all of these little squares. A lot of people are going to show up and you're going to like, hey, I know that person.
Cool. I'm in. Sounds fun.
You'll love it.
Yeah.
And this is actually, because we're thinking about movies, I think we should get a blog going with all of our past movies because we moved them off the website, but we should have our past viewings.
Oh, yeah.
It's a great thing for me to write as a task for myself to do tomorrow.
Yeah, thank you for making work for yourself, Emily. That was a really good idea.
Yeah, I'm gonna stop having good ideas, everybody. When they come this late at night.
Liar.
This was fun.
It was fun. And before everyone hopped, I really do want to communicate that this has been so much fun for me and it means a lot. And so I just really want to thank you guys for inviting me in your community and allowing me to explore something that on its face value, I think could really freak people out. It's like, oh, you're doing like a horror story. And I've only been met with open arms, and this is, a great culmination of my entire experience working within this community. So I don't know. So tonight has been really special. So thank you for inviting me and watching my film and engaging with it. It means a lot to me.
Well, John, we can't wait to follow you. It's going to be awesome.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, Lisa.
Yeah. Margarita.
Yeah.
Margarita. Woohoo!
You nailed another audition, Lisa.
Oh, and then
Thank you,
Emily,
Sunny.
let me know when this is posted somewhere.
Yep.
Okay.
I'll email you.
Awesome.
Awesome. I'm actually gonna stop the recording now and we'll